because it's always right there. And there's a guy who's lived a good life. He's not cuckoo, and his hand shakes almost every morning from remembering that time 63 years ago when he's mowing down Germans and cutting them in half and watching bodies fly in half from his fighter plane. I mean, this is the reality of war. And when you access that, not interested in all that other junk, the context, or just what it was like to be in battle, then you have an opportunity to sort of be present. Faulkner said, the writer said, history is not was but is. What does that mean? Except when you watch a guy who, he's 82 years old, but all of a sudden he's not 82, he's 18. And all of a sudden, it's not yesterday, it's now. And you can hear the thrum of the engine, you can hear the bullets, you can see that stuff happen, and that's a great gift when somebody's able to deliver that.
Yeah, and
I mean, we'd hear a guy, like family members sit in when we're doing interviews, and we still shoot film. So every 12 minutes we change a roll of film, and the greatest sound to my ears is always, "Pop, you never told us that." For years, for 60 years, the story of the Battle of the Bulge was, we took over a French farmhouse, they had a wine cellar, we all got drunk. And that was the story. And I'm sure that happened. But what he then tells you is, so it was the coldest winter ever, my buddy was wounded, and in the morning, he was dead. Rigor mortis had set in, and I had to lift his body, stiff as cordwood, and throw it in the back of a flatbed truck. And we found the footage. We spent years in the National Archives.
Wow.
And found that footage. May not have been him doing it, but something so similar that you realize you're there. And all of a sudden, the family's reeling, because for them, Dad's war experience was, and my buddies, and we did this, and here he is, and the bottle of champagne, and the French women, and
here's this horrible moment.
Here's this other, also true story. And that's what the book and the film was trying to do, was just get at this intimate details of it, so that it's no longer something that's homework or this distant lesson to us, but something that's personal. We realize that somebody that we know, our dads, my dad, an uncle, a grandpa, went through the same thing, and there, but for the grace of God, I could be there. I mean, I remember when I was 18 and 19 years old, I was wondering what my draft number was for Vietnam,
What was the difference? Because you watch some of that footage in your documentary. It's just fantastic. The spirit of the country and the people that were going off to war. Like we said, a lot of these just young kids, but in droves, and smiles on their faces, and they wanted to go and do this. And then when they did get there, the amount of camaraderie and bravery, just from, like you said, these ordinary guys, when they're riding home, it's, again, relatable as people that you know and went to school with or worked with. But then as they're doing these things in these moments of terror, you think to yourself, well, there's no way I could ever do that. How did he ever do that?
Who gets off that boat at Omaha Beach?
Exactly, yeah.
When that LST drops its front down, and
that ramp comes down, and who is getting off of that and running into machine gun fire?
He's not ending up with an empire at the end.
No, and his letters home weren't, "Hey, I'm Mr. Brave Guy." It was a scared guy. It was, somebody that, like I said, you worked or went to school with. Where did you find that came from?
A lot of it is just the momentum of the time. When everybody's doing it, there's no way to resist it. Almost in the opening of the film, some guy said, this is just a tide that carried us all downstream, and we were willing to do it. And it wasn't just altruistic patriotism. It was just staying alive, keeping my buddies alive, but participating in an adventure. This is a way to be adult. I could just sign my name, he said, and all of a sudden I'm a submariner. All of a sudden I'm a pilot. All of a sudden I'm the guys I see in the movies. And
not just some kid packing groceries.
Exactly. Pimply-faced kid. He's suddenly, doing that. But then you have to ask yourself, how does this happen? One thing is, it was shared sacrifice. It's a paradox. In shared sacrifice, we made ourselves richer. Today, we're all independent free agents. We walk around. We're not going to give up anything. And yet, we feel that poverty. We have a war going on, but it's fought by a professional class that does all its suffering alone and apart from the rest of us. We're told at 9/11 that the threat was as great as Hitler, but nobody asked us to do anything. They said, go shopping. I mean, if my president had said to me, here are 50 things I need you to give up or to do, everybody in the country would have done that.
Right.
And who knows where we'd be right now. We may not have $3.50 oil, gas. We may not have our bridges and our levees fail.
There were huge sacrifices made during World War II, and people got involved on the civilian front.
And it made us richer. That's the paradox. Not just spiritually richer, we're all together on this, we're all in the same boat, but materially, financially richer. We started off this impoverished country, reeling from the Depression, and 4 years later, we're the richest country on earth, and more than half the manufacturing in the entire world is taking place right here.
Do you find,
Amazing.
do you find that, like, a lot of the veterans, like, you look at Vietnam vets, and I'm sure even some Iraq vets are very pissed off because the reason they were given or because the way the war was dictated. I'm sure there's a lot of bitterness. Did you find the same bitterness in World War II veterans that I think exists in a lot of guys from Vietnam?
No,
or
and it's different. I think with Iraq veterans, you find a variety of opinions politically about the war. A lot of them are against it, but they're doing their duty. I mean, this is the thing. The luxury that we have to have the conversation this morning is because they're men and women who are actually willing to not only fight the good wars, but the bad ones too. And so there you have a whole range of political opinion among Iraqi vets about how it was. Vietnam was even more complicated, and of course the country did not respond well to the soldiers. That's the worst thing we did in Vietnam, is we treated them as if they were the villains, when in fact they were the pawns in a situation in which the country was divided about whether we should be there or not. So it's complicated. The interesting thing about World War II veterans is they just don't want it soft-pedaled. They don't want. I mean, I'm sitting here just over the weekend. Somebody sent me all these responses, just regular letters from folks that came in, and they're saying, snail mail. They're saying, I finally discovered my dad. A veteran came up to me the other day at a book signing, tears streaming down his cheek. He said, I've waited all my life for someone to show it the way it actually was, meaning not soft salt, not John Wayne, but the horror of war. And we felt going in, wouldn't it be better to honor them as they are reaching the sunset of their lives by not sugarcoating it, by not draping it in the bloodless gallant myth of all of the cliches that we do about World War II times, but show that this isn't the good war. This is, in fact, the worst war ever. Nearly 60 million people died. How could it be the good war? Now we know why that comes in, because the country wasn't torn the way we are now or were in Vietnam, but at the same time, nearly 60 million people died. And war is horrible. It isn't like the movies where you get up, I'm going to go and take that machine gun nest, and you get hit and you fall. You're suddenly sitting there and you turn around and your buddy doesn't have a head anymore.
He's ripped apart,
or his entrails are all over. I mean, this is not pleasant things to talk about, but this is what happened, and this is what we tried to honor. And so the veterans, to a person, their anger is about, that old thing, Daddy, what'd you do in the war? No one really wants to know the answer to that. No one actually wants to know the real answer to that. And that's why these guys came back and just shut up. And so most of the letters I have are, my dad never talked about it, but I felt through your film and your book that we were able to find out what he did. I now know my dad, or something
that it made a generation of people that were a little set apart from their fathers, not really getting that closeness, and it affected the generations down the line.
Oh, you do.
Absolutely.
What's interesting, what we found is sometimes the grandkids have a better way of prying open granddad than the sons did. I mean, 'cause it's always a complicated dynamic, but at the end of their lives, they've given a different kind of attention to the grandkids. I mean, what it's like with and we know that there's a complicated dynamic going on between our parents and our grandparents that we don't have with them. And that they're suddenly opening up. So I'm finding grandkids coming to me and saying, this is the memoir that I got my grandpa to do, or I got my DV camera and I was able to record him. And we initiated this thing with the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress, and we're getting tens of thousands of kids to get their relatives on camera before they go.
That's great. I don't think you could have enough information from these people.
You can't have enough. And you feel so great when they download this stuff to you.